Hello and welcome again. Charles Kelly reporting from Money Tips from London, where it's all kicking off today in Parliament. And I say it really is kicking off. There's votes today, which will be tonight very shortly at around 9:30, to vote on whether to take control of the business of Parliament, and then, to cut a long story short, to force a delay in the proposed Brexit day on October the 31st. And the significance of it is that the many Tory MPs, Conservative MPs who are the ruling party, will vote against the government, their own government, and will revolt against their own government. And this is causing problems because, as I was saying yesterday, the whips of the party have put out. I'll just get that light there. Have put out warnings that any MPs who vote against the government will possibly lose their seat, will be deselected from their seats in the future. Hi to everybody who's coming on board on Jenny there, Cecile, hi, John Dale, yeah, great to see you. And hi to everyone on the podcast, which you can find at moneytipsdaily.com. But if you're in London, you must watch the news in about 10 or 15 minutes, because there'll be this vote which the government could lose, and Boris Johnson has said that MPs who voted against him will suffer the consequences of being deselected and will no longer be Conservative MPs at the next election. And one of those MPs is actually the grandson of Winston Churchill. That's Sir Nicholas Soames, who is the grandson of Winston Churchill. Hi, Des, coming on board there. And that would be tragic for Boris Johnson, because Winston Churchill was one of his heroes, and he may be kicking his grandson, Sir Nicholas Soames, out of the Conservative Party. I mean, he is getting on a bit, the guy. He's probably going to retire anyway, but he's voting against the government tonight, we think. So it's all a bit of turmoil, and the point is it may come to the fact that if Boris Johnson is snookered and can't get his Brexit that he wants on the 31st of August, 1st of October, he may have to call a general election. But whether or not that will be accepted by the House of Parliament is another matter, because they need a 2/3 majority vote. But if we have another general election, it will be the third since 2015, and plus we've had the referendum, of course. So it's just unprecedented, really. So we'll have to see what happens. But in the financial news, the pound has suffered another drop, and it's just barely above 120 now. But gold is reacting well. Gold is going up because people are putting their money into safe havens like gold, because they haven't got any confidence in the pound and other investments. It's obviously not looking great at the moment for the economy. I read with dismay that Marks and Spencer's could be dropping out of the FTSE 100 Index. Remember, we talked about indexes, the markets. The FTSE 100 Index is the top 100 companies in the UK, and Marks and Spencer's could be dropping out of that, which, it was one of the leading companies and has done so well for so many years, but has sort of fallen back out of favour. I know where I live, there's two new shops have opened up recently. One is Lidl and one is Aldi, and they are really giving the traditional supermarkets a run for their money, because people want good food but cheap, and Aldi and Lidl deliver that. And you can walk out of Aldi with a basket of stuff for a tenner, which would cost you £20 or £30 in Marks and Spencer's for similar kind of stuff, really. So Marks and Spencer's have kind of lost their way a bit. The fashion's not that great anymore, so we'll have to see what happens there. And HS2, this is the high-speed railway link, could be delayed for years, as they're going to sort of kick it into the long grass and just delay that. But actually, my brother works for. I've got a question coming up. Will the result of the general election be a hung parliament, as I do not feel Jeremy Corbyn has enough public support? Well, yeah, Des, it could be a hung parliament. If the Brexit party contests seats in certain areas, it could split the Brexit supporting votes and put other parties in the fray, like the Lib Dems could gain seats. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. I hope there's not another general election, because it's just too much. We've had enough elections and referendums and all these things. So we'll have to see what happens. But as I was talking about HS2, although a lot of people are not in favour of this railway that's running initially from London to Birmingham, a lot of people are in favour of it because they say it will boost the north, and eventually that will be extended up to the north of England. Birmingham is in the Midlands, and it's costing 50 billion. But apparently my brother works for a company that supplies to the HS2 railway, and he said about 9,000 or 10,000 people are already employed on that. They've already spent 5 billion. They've dug up tunnels, they've dug up parts of Euston Station in London and parts of Camden. So it's already well on the way. And on the one hand, I say to myself, what do they need another railway going to Birmingham? But on the other hand, I'd say, we haven't got the same level of trains that you see in Spain and France and even Portugal. I've been on high-speed railway in Portugal that do sort of 300 kilometres an hour, and Portugal is a much poorer country. But, I agree that it does seem crazy that this line is going to Birmingham on this fast route when we've already got a line going to Birmingham. But apparently that's over capacity now. So I don't know. Des there is saying that it should be scrapped. It probably affects where he is in that part of the world. Perhaps it's coming through his part of the world there in Buckinghamshire. But I don't know. I think Grant Shapps will probably delay it a little bit and kick it into the long grass, and then maybe sort of hold back on it. We'll have to see what exactly happens there. But as I said, Marks and Spencer coming out. Manufacturing is down again. It's fallen back, and I think a lot of this relates to the Brexit sort of uncertainty and delay that we've had for 3 years getting this sorted out. And I think it's about time. I'd like to just see it go through on the 31st of October, come what may, as Boris Johnson says. So we've all just get it out of our system, really, just get rid of it, because it's just been going on far too long. I don't know if any of you have eaten in a Chiquito restaurant, one of these Mexican places, but apparently they're not doing so well. Half of the restaurants are under threat following a review by the owners, the restaurant group, who have actually lost money. Their shares are down by 14%. Perhaps they're saying they're in the wrong area or whatever, I don't know. But the restaurant group bought Wagamama, which is a good restaurant, and they seem to be doing very well. But in general, it's another part of the high street that's perhaps suffering from takeaways and these Just Eat, where you can just phone up and get your food delivered, and etc. I mean, we saw Jamie Oliver's restaurant group collapse. So the high street and restaurants are definitely suffering. I've seen near my high street restaurants come and go. One place was a restaurant, then it closed, and another one opened, and it closed, and another one's open, and that's closed as well. So they're really having a hard time, as most of the economy is. But that's the way things seem to be going at the moment, and I think that's down to a lot of different factors. Brexit is one of them. But there must be other factors related to that, and one is the sort of home delivery, this idea of Amazon, and you can sit inside and get everything delivered, and you don't have to go out because you can get your food delivered, and all these things. So I don't know, have we kind of stopped going out? I wouldn't like to think we just become a sort of group of people that stays at home and plays computer games and never goes out. And doesn't want to go out to eat anymore. So, I don't know. Des here again is saying he thinks £100 billion is justified on a new rail line. I don't think that £100 billion is justified on a new rail line when we have one already, and it's not full capacity. So, good point, Des. Perhaps that is true. We don't really have, I don't know. Not justified, as Des says. So maybe the new Transport Minister will delay it, and that will be that and for the next few years. I'm not bothered one way or the other, but obviously the country could do with that money. I guess they could use that money in a lot of different ways than spending it on this rather expensive railway. In fact, I heard from insiders that they spent fortunes on things like hide-in tunnels, hide-in bridges with special kind of grass and cover and that sort of thing. So it seems a very, very expensive project. So anyway, we'll have to see what happens there. So that's all then. Not great news for most investors and most investments, but perhaps not bad news for people who hold gold. If you hold gold at the moment, you've found that the price of gold has gone up by about 35% in a year. If you hold gold, not jewelry and things like that, but actually just holding gold coins like sovereigns, Britannias, eagles, and these sort of things, and maple leaf coins, then you find that you would have done very, very well. Okay, on the word of the day, often you hear these things about ISAs, right? And ISAs are particularly unique to the UK, and people have wondering, what are ISAs? What does it mean? Well, ISAs are just individual savings accounts, and these are just accounts where the money in those accounts are tax-free, and you can put in money in that account just to a deposit type of account, where the deposit account is just sitting there earning interest. Usually you get a better interest rate in an ISA deposit account, and it is tax-free. Now you can now invest in a cash ISA and pay no tax on the returns up to an annual allowance of £20,000. And some accounts are tied up for a bit longer, where you get a higher interest rate, but some of the accounts are actually just completely flexible. But you can get the interest rates are not great, 1.5%, that sort of thing, 1.15. But the important thing about an ISA is that if you put your annual allowance in each year, over 5 years, that's £100,000, then that is sitting there tax-free, and you can transfer that money from other accounts and put it into your ISA. But then that money is tax-free, whether you draw it out later on. It's always tax-free. So it protects your money against future tax, whereas a lot of people don't realise that when they have money in an ordinary deposit account, that tax is deducted from that up to the basic rate at source. And if you're a higher rate taxpayer, you're supposed to declare that and pay the extra that you would have paid on your higher rate tax on the money that you've earned from your interest, which some people call unearned interest, unearned income. That is taxed. Everything is taxed. So if you are if you have got money in deposit accounts and you're not using up your full ISA allowance, just do it. Don't wait till next April, the end of the tax year. Do it now, then you'll benefit from the interest in this year. Whilst you've got time to do it, don't leave it till the last minute. And also ISAs can be invested into shares as well, so you can have shares within your ISA. So the ISA is like a tax-free wrapper that goes around your investment, and that the underlying investment can be a deposit account, but it can also be shares. Okay, so that's your word of the day: the ISA, individual savings account. And thanks for listening. Thanks for everyone who took part in the debate on the HS2, High Speed Rail Link 2. And Des, I hope you get your wish and it stopped. And I'm sure that the residents of Buckinghamshire will be very happy that there won't be these high-speed trains blighting the countryside. And incidentally, they've already bought the houses along the link. Many people have had to sell their houses. And when the government has a compulsory purchase order on your house, you have to sell. And many feel that they didn't get the right price for their houses. So it's quite a sad state of affairs. Farmers' land has been given up. So how they're going to undo all that, I don't know. We shall have to see. So that's all for now. I'm going to get back to the debate in Parliament and see what will happen with the government, whether tomorrow we'll have a situation where the government loses another vote and the Brexit is delayed, or we have another general election. So it's very exciting times. I'm learning things every day by watching what's going on in Parliament. I'm learning about new rules and new procedures and words I'd never heard of from the Speaker and from Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Leader of the House. So thanks very much for listening. I'm getting back to the BBC now. Thank you.